And so, look, there's like 7 of us. I mean, just rough-looking guys. I mean, I was obviously looked the roughest, but 7 guys. So we pull up to this old home place, and the son was a duck hunter. But the son, he was older than me. So his mom still lived at the house. She was 85 years old. And so we gather up. So we're like, hey, we introduce ourselves. We appreciate you letting us hunt. And she's like, well, you have to come in before you can go hunt. And I have to give you a tour, and we have to drink some coffee. This is what we do here. So everybody was looking around. I was like, all right, boys, we're going on the tour. So we go in there. Well, then I quickly found out that this woman was a woman of faith. And
was her name Granny Hawkins, Jase?
no, it wasn't Granny Hawkins.
Okay.
She was Miss Helen. But she said she basically, first she showed us, she had a thing she had built. Of course, the place was full of history, and that was all interesting. But what got my attention was the first display was this display her daughter had done and it was Jesus rocks of various assortments and design, and that she had a verse there. What's the verse that says, if you don't praise something to the faith, you don't praise God, the rocks will cry out? It was in Matthew.
Yeah.
Which would have been really the first rock concert. No, it was a bad joke, but if the rocks are crying out. But y'all remember that verse. So I thought, well, this is interesting, you know. And then she just, I realized this woman is trying, she's using this. She believes the Lord has sent these 7 people, and she's fixed to share her faith and the love of God. And she did it. She was very witty, sharp as a tack about history, but she just found ways to share different aspects of faith and the love of God. And look, she had there was this white dress on the wall. It was she called it a baptismal dress, I guess just for ladies only. But she had a history in her family going back to the late 1700s from everybody who was baptized. I mean, like,
that is pretty cool.
You just went through it and the dates that it happened, and so the more I got around her, I mean, I thought, well, this is the treasure. I mean, I'm glad I came in here, you know.
No doubt about it.
So then we were like, okay, the tour's over, and she's like, well, I have to read you a story, so y'all have a seat and sip on your coffee. And she read us about a 10-minute, very inspirational story about a young girl who used to call back in the day. You could call information, and it was something, information please, but it wasn't like today what we, you know, when you ask what's the
Alexa?
Yeah, back in the day they had Alexa, but it was actually a woman named Alexa who would say, can I help you? So she read this story about this I think it started when she was 3 or 4 years old. She picked up the phone, said, information, please, and she asked how to spell fix, I think was the first thing she asked. But she just kept calling this woman. Any idea she had, any question, as she was growing. And so eventually she quit calling, but then she thought about her like 15 years later, and she called back, same woman, still there. Hey, how you doing? And well, then she called, and there was a guy, and information, please, was no longer in service, but she had written a letter before she died, the woman who was the informant. And she said, if this girl ever calls again, read her this letter. And so, of course, and then the Miss Helen got real teary-eyed. And it basically, the letter was that this woman couldn't have kids, and this little girl calling, she just took it upon herself to try to teach her and mentor her about life. And I mean, there was way more substance and spirituality to some of the things. I mean, this was like, it's probably a 15-minute reading. You know?
Yeah.
And I just looked around and thought, all these old rough guys were inspired, got teary-eyed, because she was getting teary-eyed. And plus just the transition from time. And she made the point that it's about relationships, you know, no matter how technology has evolved, because back then that was a big thing. You can call and get whatever information you want whatsoever.
The only time we ever saw Alexa stumble is I asked Dan to ask Alexa, do you duck hunt? Do you hunt ducks? And there was a pause.
That was a good question.
There was a pause, and then the answer coming forth from the internet was, I'm not sure. I said, oh, honey, you'd be sure if you did it or not. Come on out with it.
So anyway, so it was a great. So I was like, no matter what we find here, I'm inspired, and it was great.